Hey everyone, today we are going to be comparing the new Carbonara Limited to the Power-1. Now, if you actually watched my ultimate review on the Carbonara yesterday, the one that was 36 minutes long, the first trade I actually got for it was the Power-1, and I did say I was going to make a separate video on the Power-1, so this is it right here. I'm going to be discussing everything you need to know about the Power-1, as well as some of the best things that are going for it, because it's actually going for a lot right now in trading. So we're going to be discussing all of that today. And first things first, the Power-1 is actually a fairly recent vehicle that you could get in the game. So this year around August, you could get the Power-1, but it is unironically one of the best seasonal rewards we have had in a while. And well, needless to say, it became a limited on October 2nd, and today we're going to be discussing why it's such a good vehicle, and we're also going to be comparing it to the new Carbonara, because they are actually very similar. Before I also made the Ultimate Carbonara review, I also did a video comparing the Carbonara to the Aperture, and this is actually sort of similar to the Aperture, but in my opinion, the Power-1 might be the holy grail of season rewards. It's not a fine vehicle, but it's the next best option that we have to something like Excelsior. So let's get right into it. I have to say that the Power-1 is very similar to what I remember the Macron being. A lot of people really like the Power-1, and well, compared to the Carbonara, the hype is there, but I feel as a design in general, I really like the kind of flashy cosmetic that the Power-1 has. It really does stand out as a supercar, and that's what a lot of people find appealing in Jailbreak. So the Carbonara is a close second, and I think that the looks in general are going to be a little bit subjective, but as far as the performance go, Power-1 is very fantastic. It's actually got just as fast as a launch speed as something like the Aperture, or in fact they are very similar, but the only downside to the Power-1 is it's actually got a little bit of a mediocre top speed. It's got around 244 miles per hour. So yes, that's pretty much on par with the Snake, and on the other hand we have the Carbonara. So the Carbonara just has a slightly slower acceleration. I'm talking maybe a 50 mile per hour slower acceleration. It's not that noticeable, but you can definitely feel it if you're comparing it side to side. On the other hand though, the Carbonara does make up for that with top speed. So the Carbonara is going to be absolutely beaming the Power-1 across the map, and so let's get this straight right here. As far as the Carbonara and Power-1 go, they have very similar acceleration, but the biggest difference between the two is the Power-1 kind of tops off at about 250 miles per hour, somewhere around there. It might be higher if you're going downhill, but that's what I got on average. Whereas with the Carbonara, I'm noticing it just constantly is accelerating. So instead of having that initial burst going all the way to 250 where the Power-1 is, it kind of has a slower acceleration, but it's constantly going. And if you have a concept, that is exactly what the Carbonara feels like. Carbonara is a very fantastic car for top speed, and I have to say it's a very good grinding car if you are wanting to travel, let's say, from the power plant all the way to the criminal base, whereas the Power-1 is mostly going to be a car about that acceleration. It's going to absolutely excel in the city, for instance, but on the other hand, yes, it's not going to actually be as good for something like the power plant, unless you accidentally like wipe out. Then yes, that's where the acceleration is going to be able to come in. But as far as that goes, that's the two biggest differences I found between the Power-1 and the Carbonara. Now I will say one thing, the Carbonara does have like a slightly worse handling, like the braking is just not as good. The Power-1 is just instant, and as soon as I press basically the brake, the Power-1 immediately stops. So that's something I will give credit to the Power-1. But let's actually now compare these limiteds to each other. So what I mentioned was just about all of the performance, but as far as limiteds go, the Carbonara is the newest one. Now it costed 800,000. So if you have watched my last trading video, here's what I gotta say about the Carbonara. It basically already doubled in value. So if you bought it for 800,000, then you basically got your investment back. It's getting anywhere from a Macron, it's getting very good overpays, and that first day, hey, I even got a Power-1, which is why I'm making this video. I think they're both going to be very similar, but here's the thing about the Carbonara. I feel that the hype is already starting to kind of go downward, and their explanation for that is because everyone that wanted a Carbonara just about got it for that $800,000 price tag. So it is going to take a few months for it to rise any higher than it is right now, and my initial ranges for the Carbonara's value was going to be anywhere from 1.5 million to 3 million, and well, I have to say it settled around that 2.5 million range, which is is just in line with about every single other supercar kind of limited we got. So that goes for the Parisian, that goes for the Aperture. And on the other hand, the difference with the Power-1 is that it was actually a seasonal prize. So it was not just purchasable for everyone in the game for like a week or two. You actually had to basically grind for it with the tedious contracts. And so even though there is a few tens of thousands of them circulating, they are basically no longer obtainable, and it's already been basically closed off since October. So that means if you didn't play Jailbreak somewhere in the middle of August to early October, you basically have no chance of getting the Power-1 because the season ended. So that being said, that is the explanation for the Power-1. A lot of people really like the looks of it. So that is the kind of upsides of the Power-1. It was already in the game a lot longer than the Carbonara, and so a lot of people want the Power-1. This is kind of the biggest factor between the two. So I mentioned before that I actually find more use out of acceleration in Jailbreak, and so the Carbonara is very good if you're playing as a criminal, but in the long run, I'm actually playing more often as a cop right now. I think that pit maneuvers need that acceleration, and so that's absolutely what the Power-1 is very useful for. Handling is about the same, but that braking is also a little bit worse, so you can't necessarily make turns around the city as easily, and so the Power-1 just has the advantages of having that extra acceleration and also having that good look. And a lot of people are offering big time overpays for the Power-1 right now. I think it's an absolutely very good vehicle, and over the past month or so, the Power-1 kind of went from 3 million to 3.5 million to 4 million, and now it is actually getting trades on average of about 5 million. Now, I don't think that the Power-1 is going to go a lot higher than 5 million, but that's on average what I'm getting for the Power-1. It's actually getting that Macron and M12 range. So between the two limited vehicles, the Power-1 is actually getting more than the Carbonara, but the Carbonara still has a chance to actually catch up to the Power-1. So in a lot of ways, these two vehicles are rivals to each other, and one is better in acceleration and the other is just slightly worse in acceleration, but it has that better top speed. Now here's the deal. If you're thinking about getting yourself a Power-1, they're going for a pretty hefty price right now. I know that season was very popular. It was actually the European season, I think, season 17. So a lot of people were really playing Jailbreak over the summer, and it was the perfect fitting vehicle. On the other hand, the Carbonara was just added into the game like a week ago, and so now it is tradable. So yes, the Carbonara is not going to have the same value as the Power-1. It will maybe potentially rise to that amount at some point, but the only issue is that, yeah, I think a lot of people ended up getting the Carbonara, and those who wanted it basically already got it. So that's the issue holding back the Carbonara, whereas the Power-1 has already been in the game for quite some time. So which vehicle should you get? In my honest opinion, if you don't need that extra 50 miles per hour, slightly better acceleration that the Power-1 has, I think the Carbonara is the obvious choice. It's a much better vehicle if you're looking for that top speed, because like I said, if you've bought the concept, or if you use something like a Lamborghini, you're going to know that it's not going to have that instant acceleration, but it's going to have that very high top speed, and that's my honest impressions with the Carbonara. It is very similar to the Parisian. So here's where all of these vehicles stand. The Carbonara is very similar to something like the Parisian, and it is basically a vehicle that is going to have the higher top speed, whereas the Power-1 is more so similar to the Aperture, and the Aperture is very similar to the Roadster, except they both have a little bit higher top speed than the Roadster. So that's my placement of these vehicles. But as far as what I get for the Power-1, I have seen a lot of overpays for this vehicle, and that mostly has to do with players just wanting it for its looks and its performance, because it's a very new player friendly vehicle, and I also really like the design of the Power-1. I think it looks absolutely amazing. So that being said, the Power-1, it's a very fantastic vehicle, and it was also modeled after the McLaren P1, which is actually one of my favorite vehicles. I think Mad City actually had this vehicle a little bit before Jailbreak. That's not throwing shit at all, but I really love this vehicle in Mad City, and it is very comparable in its characteristics to the one that was just added in Jailbreak. So I really like this vehicle. Two-seater, of course, it's not going to have the absolutely best performance compared to something like what the Javelin, which, speaking of it, I might do Javelin comparisons in the future to some of these vehicles like the Carbonara versus Javelin. But that being said, the Power-1, it's a vehicle that a lot of people are basically wanting, because let's say you're a new trader and you don't have much else to trade with. The Power-1 fits that spot perfectly, and 5 million for it, I think that's a very outstanding price, and it's a very respectable spot. So I think the Carbonara, after my 36-minute review, where I think it's going to stand is about now for the next few months. Until next year, that's when I think the Carbonara is really going to start rising to maybe 3 million-ish. I don't want to set expectations too high, but yeah, it seems like the Carbonara kind of evened out at 2.5 million, and while the Power-1 right now is better in value, but not necessarily in performance. So I want to get that absolutely straight. If you want the Power-1, you're not going to be getting the the absolutely insane performance that the Carbonara has, but both are very good. And so a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Which vehicle do you want? Do you want the new Carbonara, which just about every single player has just because it has very good top speed, although a slightly lower acceleration, or do you want that extra acceleration that the Power-1 has, although with a lower top speed? So my personal preference, I'm going to have to go with the Carbonara, but I absolutely do love the Power-1. It just looks super flashy. It stands out from a distance, and it's probably one of the sleekest vehicle. It came out right before that Jailbreak Creations kind of changed, where you can no longer have cars with like 6,000 plus triangle limits. So the Carbonara is the first supercar that I feel we've gotten that doesn't necessarily have that many polygons, whereas the Power-1 was one of the last. I'm not including the Longhorn because the Longhorn was absolutely garbage, but the Power-1 is always going to have that slight bump in the model. It looks super nice, and if you've seen anything in the gameplay here, it's very hard to actually model a car like this with the mirrors. And overall, I really enjoyed using the Power-1 during the time I had with it in this video. Again, trading wise, the Power-1 is getting on average anywhere from an M12 to a Macaron right now. It didn't always used to get that much, and it's mostly just because the Power-1 is trending right now. That's the only reason it's getting so many overpays. So let's say you have the Power-1, you can get upwards of a Parisian for it, so that's going to be the 3 million kind of threshold, and that's the minimum I would really trade the Power-1 for right now. And then anything else would be in that 4 million range. So for example, that would be the Macaron, and then you could also trade all the way upwards of an M12. And I think Power-1 is the first vehicle that really fits in that 5 million spot. I don't think it's going to go up to 6 million. I think that would be a little bit ridiculous. I don't think anyone's going to be paying more than that for the Power-1, but I felt for a vehicle that is going to be a good stepping stone. That's actually why the Power-1 is in such a good place. A lot of new players have it. It's their first vehicle, and they got it around August or something, and they're using that Power-1 to trade up to some different vehicles. So I think it's in an absolutely great spot, and so that's actually why I like using the Power-1. But the Carbonara, it's not bad by any means. It's just the newest vehicle, and so it's actually going to take some time to rise. So I've kind of mentioned my preferences for these vehicles, what I think about them, and as far as their trading value goes, I did already discuss the Carbonara. I got some pretty decent offers for it, but again, everyone that pretty much wanted it by now did already get it. So right now is actually probably the worst time to be trading the Carbonara. It's only going to spike up again a few months from now on, because that's just how it's been when I was playing around the time the Aperture was added, the Javelin, the Parisian, the Snake. These vehicles do great on their first day, then they kind of go down once everyone's got it, and then it's only until the next batch of a few 100,000 players gets into Jailbreak that then the Carbonara starts getting really high popularity. And right now, that's exactly what's happening with the Power-1. If you were interested about why the Power-1 is rising, a lot of people want the Power-1, especially new players. They see in the game it was available around summer, and so a lot of new players that just joined because of the oil rig and the new limited are getting to experience that Power-1 for the first time, and so there's a lot of people wanting to trade for it. So that's by no means a bad thing. We'll see how long the Power-1 stays up there. Again, it's not anything groundbreaking. It's about 5 million. That's just on average what I'm getting for it. So that being said, I hope that gives some perspective on the new Carbonara as well as the Power-1. They are both very similar vehicles. As far as their trading values, very self-explanatory. I don't think I need to delve into why the Power-1 is getting 5 million. It just does. If you have the Power-1, you can see for yourself it's getting anywhere from a Macaron to an M12, and that's really the vehicles I'm getting for it. Hey, if you throw it in with some ads, you might actually even get some overpays for it, like even upwards of a Brulee if you want that. But that being said, I think the Carbonara is going to be a close second in this comparison. It's the newest vehicle, but I did get some decent offers, and if you really want to win in trading value right now, consider trading your Carbonara for the Power-1 before there's absolutely no chance of getting it for a reasonable price. So that being said, I think that's all I had to say in this video. If you're new to my channel, make sure to subscribe. It helps me make these videos for you guys. And if you like the video, make sure to like, and I'll keep on making some more comparisons like this. But that being said, I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.